No, we find people coming to him out in the wilderness for that fellowship and for the hearing of the gospel of God. Now we're getting down to the heart of the matter. It is true that John went and lived as a survivalist, as we would know it today, before he began his public ministry. Once he began his public ministry, we're told in the Gospels, which is really the first instance that we really get to know John a little bit, beyond the time from when he jumped in his mother's womb. He went out in the spirit and the power of Elijah the prophet. This is very important information, because when we go back to the Old Testament and we look at the life of Elijah the prophet, we see that he and the prophet he was training, Elisha, did the majority of their work, their teaching, and their fellowship in the midst of the wilderness. So it only makes sense that from the wilderness, God would send out the spirit and the power of Elijah to rest upon one such as John the Baptist. We find no other mention of John ever going to town to publicly preach, which I find very interesting. In our church societies today, it's very common for us to come out to the woods for some sort of an event or a camp out overnight. But a lot of folks don't believe that ministry can take place right here. It makes more sense for ministry to take place in God's creation than it does man's creation or within the four walls of a nice little building. We've got ourselves boxed into calling that building the church, when it's nothing more than a container for the church. The church is you and I. The church is made up of living stones, so wherever we are, the church is. You can't go to something that you're called to be. And because we are called to be the church, wherever we gather, be it in the wilderness or in the city, the church is made manifest. And that is exactly what was going on in the ministry of John the Baptist. No, we find people coming to him out in the wilderness for that fellowship and for the hearing of the gospel of God.